Alright, welcome back to another TouchDesigner tutorial, and on this one I'm going to show you how to create camera animations using the animation comp, and a few tricks with that. I'm going to use this height map sphere and grid to just create something that kind of looks nice and maybe shows you some other tricks besides, but mostly this is about the animation comp. So if you're really here just for the animation, then skip this video to a later point where I talk about how to actually do this. We're also gonna create a little setup for, just gonna show you, for changing different, switching between different animations based on beat detection in this case, or based on the audio file in general. Alright, so I'm going to, just as always, delete everything, and just before I do that, I'm going to start with this part. So that's gonna be the preparations for the height map. Then I'm going to actually render that on a sphere or a grid, and then we're gonna get to the actual animation part. Alright, so I'm just gonna do the first two parts rather quickly, because that's not what we're focusing on. So I'm gonna just start with a circle, and the circle I'm going to give a 60 divisions so it's really smooth, and I'm gonna make it smaller, so just like 0.02. And I'm going to connect it to a geo and insert a camera and change the Z to 2. And then I'm going to add a constant here, because we just want the circles to be nice and completely white. And I'm going to turn instancing on the geo. And to instance these circles, I'm going to create a noise chop and attach that to a null. We want to have two channels because we're going to instance the X and the Y. So on the channel, I'm going to change this to TX and TY and change the period. I'm not going to change the period for now. We can do that later. So I'm going to make this viewer not active and drag that onto the translate OP. If it doesn't look like this, you don't have the newest version installed. So this is like the 2020 version, so you have some new features here. So I'm gonna I drop that into the translate OP and just gonna select TX and TY, and now it should look something like that. Now I'm gonna drop a render in here, so like a 1024 by 1024 size render, and what I'm going to do there is to blur them first. Just we can leave it as it is. Insert a transform as well. Change the background color to like a darkish kind of violet, and turn this on. And also change the background alpha to 1. Alright, then I'm going to add a null, and with the middle mouse insert a normal map here, and then connect this to another null. And on the normal map, I'm going to change the sample step to 10 and 10. So this should kind of look like this. Alright, so that's like the basic setup. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sphere and a grid that we're gonna displace. So the sphere, I'm just dropping that in and changing the rows and columns both to be 300. And I'm going to drop a grid and do the same. And also I want this to be 3 by 3 in size. So I'm gonna attach a geo here. And now on the render here, we need to actually change the geometry to just be geo1. So we just want to render this one. And we don't need any lights on here, and we just want that camera. So I'm going to drop another camera in here. And just change the FOV angle for now to like 60. And I'm going to drop another render in here. and changed the resolution to full HD, and also changed the geometry to BGO2. So we just want to render this one, and also just cam2 and lights 1, because that's what we're going to put in here now. Not lights, it's just light 1. All right, so now we see the sphere appearing here. So now I'm gonna attach a transform and a null to this as well. Turn the display on here and change the background color to like a, I don't know, like a dark kind of blue. So something like that, and turn the alpha to 1 and comp over background color on. Actually, don't really like that. And it's like the most important part for sure. Okay, I'm gonna do something like that. And all right, now what I'm gonna do is use a foam material and use this as a material in here. So I'm just going to say par material, and then I'm going to drag the null 2 onto the color map and the normal map onto the bump, say enable height map on, and drop that on here as well. So now we see this. I'm going to put the parallax scale to all the way down and turn display vertices on and change that to 0.5. So now you have something like that. We also want to insert an attribute create here, because this is kind of complaining that there's something normal mapping, but blah blah blah. So we need to, like always when this message appears, like this whole thing, then you need to like insert this attribute create and turn it tangents on. All right, so I'm actually gonna make this period a bit smaller, something like that, I don't know. And then I'm going to change the change some stuff on here. So one being on the comment page, I'm going to change the wireframe to topology wireframe. Topology? Yeah. And change the diffuse here to be like a light blue. And also I'm gonna turn the blending on here and just turn this down to like 0.8 or like 0.6, something like that. And also on the rim, I'm going to enable a rim light, which is just kind of this second light that makes everything look a bit cooler, and make that slight red and a bit more, like a bit stronger, something like that. So that looks pretty nice. Now, yeah, that's like the basic setup that we have. I don't think we need to do anything else here. So this is really nothing about the animation comp. What we're gonna do now is to animate, these 3 parameters here. So you could animate anything, you can animate any parameter, but these 3 translate ones are what we're interested in. And we also need a null comp, because like you don't have to use this, but I think it's easier to work with that. So we're gonna use that as a look at on the camera. Also, just one little thing why I cranked up the detail here. If we have just 30, then you can see if I actually turn off the topology, then you're really not getting all the different pixels on here in a way. The height map is you have less polygons, like way less polygons than you have like pixels for the height map. So it looks a lot better if you have a higher resolution 3D model, if you want to call that. All right. So also on the grid, I actually want to change this to a ZX plane. So that looks like that. Cool. So getting to the actual tutorial. I'm going to insert the animation comp in here. So that's just on the comp page there, and I'm going to explain you how to use that now. So there's a couple of options here now that we're actually not interested in right now. The only thing that we're going to change in a second is this, but what's most important here is to go on the edit button on the edit animation thing here. Alright, and then this window pops up, or like the split screen pops up, and now we see like a lot of new things. So we have like this left part here, which is kind of the animation settings, or like the channel list, and then we have like this main window here where the curves are gonna appear. So if you're like if you've worked with After Effects, like keyframing in general, this shouldn't be all that new to you. If it is, then well, that's fine as well. What we need to do first is to add channels. So we want to work with, like, we want to create channels, and then use these to drive the camera or anything, really. So you like in the for default you have like this TXYZ here. Like you could also write TX, TY, TZ, but it's like a shorter way to do that. And then you just say add channels, and now you have like these 3 channels here. And if you click one, you can see it's selected here now. Like the curve is selected here now. If I click another one, that's a different one. And if I press, like if I hold Shift and select different ones, then these both are going to be shown in here. And if you want to like just show like all of them, but don't want to like, that's a bit weird, but technically you can turn them on, like off, like so now they can't be edited. So now I can only edit this one, and the X one is just staying there. All right, but I do want to edit the X one. So before I start though, there's an important thing. So as you can see, this is like you have like these values here, and you have like the length here. And if you just with the left mouse just go up, you can see there's all the values there that you want. So I mean, that's good. But let's say I want to animate something to go from here 0 to like here 5. All right, so I could type in like the 5 here, press H to home it, and then you could see like if you look here on the TX, now if I go through here, it's just going to animate exactly that. So it's going to go to 5, and then I would start again. So that's cool, but I think it's kind of a hassle to change stuff in here. So what I like to do is, like, you don't have to do that, but I like to work that way now, is to just work with normalized values. So just work with 0 to 1, or like -1 to 1 is actually, I think, is the best. So this is exactly what we're going to do. To do that, we need to use a select, a math, and a null, and use these 3 times actually, because we have 3 different values. Oops. And so on these maths, I'm going to change the ranges. So I'm gonna say -1 and 1 to like -5 and 5, and the same on the transform. Also, I need to select them here, so I'm going to select the TX, TY, and TZ. And on the TY, I'm going to change the range from like, I'm going to leave it at 0 and 1 and change it to like 1 and 5, because that's what we're going to map that to. Now what we also want to do is make them all viewer active, and then just drag and drop them into the corresponding fields. Okay, so if I press play now, then you can see this is animating the TX from 0 to 5, and it's animating that in here. So yeah, that's cool. What I can do now is go on the TZ and like change this. You can drag it around if you want to. You can. It's also a trick of that I found out is actually quite useful. Is to make them snap, which again isn't really working well. Yeah, this kind of like it really sucks. So if I change this, I had this problem earlier for some reason. Sometimes you. All right, now it works. So type a value in here, and that is gonna snap to that. So I think that's pretty useful. And also you can type like the frame here. So I'm gonna type actually just 0 in there, and then I can just type like 1 here, and on the end, at the end, maybe I want to have like -1. And if I press play, you can see like this is animating both the X and the Y, and I can also animate the X and the Z, and I can also animate the Y, for example. And I can also change it to the grid, so you can see what's going on pretty nicely. So it's just kind of zooming out there. All right, so far so good. I think it's pretty straightforward. You can obviously change the functions here, so you can just make this linear, or any of these, just really play around with those. What I want to show you as well is how to play with the play mode. What you can do, because now it's like if I'm actually using that quite a lot, you can just go through the animation. Like if you click here and just drag, you can go through the whole animation. So yeah, it should actually be there. So you can just play it through the timeline basically. All right, anyways, just had a little just gone for a second. So what you can do is just use an LFO, any kind of other chop, and make that 0.2 frequency, and use a math and like change this to a Gaussian, so it's like between 0 and 1, and then we can map this to like 0 and 600, the length of this, and then just put that in here, and on the animation change the play mode to use input index. So now as you can see, it's like using this value to go through the animation. Could make this faster, and then yeah, you can see that's working. Also, to do that, as you can see, it's kind of doing this weird glitch there. Use the unit here as samples, then you get rid of that. Yeah, and we can change to sphere, and you can see that nicely. So yeah, I think that's the basics with the animation. You can also change this to sequential, and just get rid of this for a second, and then you can like trigger it by something, you know, like I don't know, whatever you want to trigger, but like you could trigger it on a beat, for example. So that would be one way to go about this. And you could output the full range as well, so you could just get the lines that you drew here as channels here, as like not time slice channels. All right, I'm going to use the input index again, so like the LFO, and make that a bit slower, like 0.3 maybe. And what you can do now, what I showed you in the beginning with the different animations, you can, like, I'm going to insert a switch here with right mouse click, and now you can just like copy this, paste it, and also insert it in there. And now you could go on here, say edit on here, And now, I don't know, just change a few things, make this like ease again, and then, yeah, another important thing actually that I forgot is to how to like insert keyframes in here. It's just by pressing Alt, and then you can see this cross appearing there, and then you can just click anywhere on the line and insert a keyframe. And as you just saw, it just snapped to the grid. You can turn that off here, but I kind of like that. So yeah, I can just insert as many of these as I want. So now if I play this, or if I switch this first, so now like you can see it's using these values instead of these values. Now I can change the Z on here as well, and maybe make it like this. I don't know. It doesn't look good, but that's not the point here. And now I can just copy paste this again and again. Oops, don't want to lock this. Go on edit again, and I don't know, change this and just quickly do anything. You can, of course, make this look nicer. I'm a bit lazy right now. So, alright, just changing stuff kind of randomly here, just for the sake of presenting. So now I can just switch through here, and then I get different different animations. So yeah, I can use this now, like having the switch here. I can use this to like kind of go through it using a beat. So I'm going to use my snare detection comp that we built in another tutorial to drive like to loop through the switch here. So I'm gonna put in this audio file in and use a device out so we can hear it. So it's just a default song, and as you can see here, it's just detecting like a snare there. So I'm gonna put a null here, and as you can see, we have like, because we have four comms, we have like 0, 1, 2, and 3 as an index. So we want to loop for that, and we can do that very simply by just taking a count. And on this count, I'm going to put this limit here to loop min-max and change the maximum to 3. And pulse this. Okay, so now I can see it's going to 3 and then back to 0. And now we can just use this on here. Maybe actually make this slower. And then we can change the grid. We can change some stuff on here if we want to. I don't know. We can do a lot of stuff here. Alright, so I think that's about it. There's, yeah, really, you need to kind of get used to this animation comp. It's kind of a hassle in the beginning, and that doesn't actually change a lot, but it's still very powerful, and I think you can do some great stuff with it. And you can also just bypass this to get rid of the insides there. Also looks cool. Yeah, alright, so one thing that's nothing to do with this exact tutorial is that I now have a Patreon. And first I want to say thank you to all the people that already support me. And if you also want to become a patron, then I'll leave a link in the description. And yeah, you can have files like the project file of this and some other extras there. And also let me know if you have any questions, or if you have any like wishes for a specific topic that you want me to cover Alright, so thanks a lot for watching, and I see you on the next one.